Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast on how to run profitable retreats. And today I have Amanda Mendez joining us to talk about, just trying things out, adaptability, and so many more surprises. But before that, I want to talk to you a little bit about who's Amanda. So she's a renowned yoga teacher and founder of the Authentic Yoga Studio and Authentic Yoga Retreats. Her personal style of teaching emphasizes the transformative power of yoga, but both physically and mentally. With over 10,000 hours, that's a lot. So congratulations for that, Amanda.
Thank
10,000
you.
hours of teaching experience. It's a lot. Like if you split the hours, it's so many days in the year, right?
It
And
is one of those things.
and then many hours as a student. So Amanda specializes in anatomy and alignment, hands-on assisting. And I think also this is something very important for every yoga teacher or body worker instructor listening to us on how anatomy is so crucial for a good practice, right? So, and
Absolutely.
also, also meditation and breath work that I am a super fan. And Amanda's passion lies in helping athletes, teams, and active individuals use yoga to enhance their training and performance. I have to say, my brother, for example, he started his yoga journey because he was a hiker. He was used to do like all
Yeah,
this like high mountain hiking, this crazy stuff with like snow and like very crazy. And he started using yoga as a practice for him to stretch. And then suddenly he
absolutely.
realized, yeah, that instead of waking up to go and hike, he was waking up to go to his yoga class. And then he shifted his whole life, sold his company, and started his journey and became a yoga teacher. So I think it's super crucial to be able to understand how yoga enhances the training and performance of many people, right? And using
And
yoga to help manage stress and anxiety in first responders. I think this is something that's absolutely beautiful as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here today. I can't
thank
wait.
you for having me here. That is like kind of how I made it to my mat was I want it to be a physical thing. I was in a place in my life like that's where I needed is like I need to be physical again. I needed to get back in shape and I'm like, why not just jump into some hot yoga? And then I actually didn't even walk into my first yoga class. I got so intimidated and I walked out, and it took me 4 months before I even walked back. But it was life changing. And then I found out it was more than just the physical sense. I was getting the physical sense, and I was just getting a much more wholesome practice. I was being able to be present, as I like to tell everyone. It's like I got to escape my mandatory reality of all the kind of like shit show that was my life going on at the moment. And it helped me kind of just reorganize myself again, kind of get rid of all the other stuff that was cluttering and weighing me down to start over, um, to adapt, into where I am now.
I love this story because it's absolutely perfect, right? And before we started this call, just so everyone knows, we were talking about how you have to go and try things out. And if you don't go and try things out, like for example, running your first retreat, how are you ever going to know if you really love it or you don't? The same thing with
Yeah,
all the practices, right? How do you know if you like breath work if you don't never tried it? And
absolutely.
sometimes, like you said, it can be a little bit daunting, right? To
Oh,
walk into the first one.
yoga and me had like a love hate relationship going on for a very long time. But it was very much again that trying aspect I needed. I had I don't want to say stop trying as a person, but kind of like stop trying as a person. I got myself stuck in where I thought I was stuck in life. You're stuck here. You don't know where you want to go. You're in a crappy situation. You're in a crappy, relationship. You're in a crappy job. You think you're in a dead end. I was over 30 before I even started doing yoga in general. And, I switched my entire life around because I tried to. And yoga helped me be very intentional in that trying.
Mm.
And here we are,
Oh my
a
gosh, I love
lot of
that.
hours later. A lot of hours later. I was just telling one of my friends yesterday, I'm like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would have been here, this was not where I would have ever thought would have been.
Yeah, life has so many surprises, right? Like
Totally.
I think sometimes certain things start happening in your life because, the universe, God, however you want to call it, a higher energy, doesn't really matter, starts putting certain things on your face. And so many times we ignore them, right? Because we
Oh
are
yeah.
like, oh, no, 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 that's not for me. I'm never going to be able to do that. And then it keeps showing up, it keeps showing up. And honestly, it doesn't stop showing up until one day you just surrender and you say, okay, I'm going to go into this yoga class. I'm going to find a way to solve these things that are making me stuck, right? Whatever, however the practice looks like, it doesn't really matter, right? It's like, if you're feeling stuck, that you can't move forward somewhere, you need to do something about it. If you stay in the same
Correct.
place,
Yeah.
how do you expect change to happen, right?
Yeah. And that's all what it takes, is like realizing you're not stuck. Realizing all you have to do is try. Realizing all you have to do is show up. It's going to look different from everybody. Like the expectation of the outcome is what we have so messed up in our head. We're all looking to try to get to one place, and we have this like, okay, that's exactly where I'm going. And then that's never where we're going. that's an idea, and it'd be great, and we can work to those places. But I'll tell you, like I said, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought I would have been here. I am 10 times better off and in a better place than I could have ever imagined myself being in. Just
You're just
because
speaking
I
to
like
my
correct.
heart. You're speaking to my heart, really. Like, this is exactly the way I feel, right? And it's
Yeah.
I think everyone in the audience should know that it is normal to go through these processes where suddenly you get focused on this outcome, and then you're like really focused there, and then suddenly it doesn't work out and you feel despair. I've been there, right?
Yeah.
I've been there, just thinking like, oh, really, this is what I want to do, and this is exactly the way it's supposed to look like. And then suddenly something else happens and it opens up the world for so many other possibilities. And you're like, okay, maybe I just need to keep showing up.
Totally. Totally. And that's exactly where it got me, to where I am. I kept showing up. I did not love yoga the way I love yoga now. And it was days I had to show up, and days that I was cursing myself out and cursing the teacher out and doing both. And days I left feeling not necessarily, I want to say defeated, but to frustrated, and to where I had a hard practice and it didn't turn out the way I wanted. And I wasn't able to do the postures I wanted to do, or I didn't, complete the entire practice without taking a break. All these, again, expectations we put onto ourselves. And in letting all of those fall down, burn down, let myself drop out of postures, like we learn so much from that. We start to learn, like that's where the adaptability starts. Okay, you're right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have to say, when you go into a yoga studio and you go into a yoga class, there's a lot of peer pressure because there's so many other people that might have, maybe been a ballet dancer when they were younger. Totally. So they're a lot more flexible. And then you see them doing all these amazing postures and going into, like, let's say the third level of the posture. And you're like, oh my God. Like, and then you start feeling ashamed of who you are and
what's wrong with me.
Why can't I do the same way she did? And I went through that process. I actually took a 50-hour yoga teacher training because I was just like, there is something that I'm not doing right. I need to go deeper into the practice to be able to, to really understand it. And I'm not a yoga teacher, and I don't intend to be a yoga teacher, but I wanted to understand really how to even place my hands, because I felt there was something that I was not doing right. And the teachers were not in the position to give you this like teachings, because once you go into a yoga studio, you walk in and then they expect you to already be at a certain level or have the knowledge on, like, things as simple as how do you place your hands on the mat, where your
Totally.
fingers have to be pointed, because everyone is in a different level. They start at a different time. And for me, it came to a point where I started doing my yoga practices with my eyes closed because I didn't want to see anyone else.
I love it. That's actually, to me, that's actually one of my favorite places to like take my practice. Even if I'm in a room with, all of my community and students, I still close my eyes just because it's such a different experience. And it is such like a more homing experience in your body. We forget like every single body, we can visibly look around standing next to each other and see that we are all not shaped the same. So why are we expected to move the same, or our postures to look the same, or for us to shame ourselves for not being the same as everyone else? Who said one of those postures is right or wrong?
Exactly, right. And
Yeah.
you see now all these different techniques and modalities of like yoga, and I know is there is this phrase that it says adapt or die, right? But I think more it's like now it's like adapt or die trying, like
Yeah,
you gotta put yourself all in. Like there is no other option, and because it's for
totally.
you, but you have to do it for you, right?
And that's the thing. Like it sounds so like harsh sometimes when we say like adapt or die, but like that is it. And it's not necessarily like die to your death, but like want to be stuck in the same thing, doing the same exact thing over and over and over and get caught just kind of fading down the rabbit hole that way. Like that sounds miserable to me. And that's what makes me want to try harder. That's what like gives me that push. But like yoga's helped me find that drive to do it. There are many days that when I teach a very powerful, empowering, challenging practice, because we are all able to do that. Like we're all able to find where that edge is, and we've kind of got to find that spark in us as humans in general to start moving in that direction. We have dulled ourselves down, and I hate to say it, we have dumbed ourselves down, and we have lost the spark. We have lost our drive. We have lost our motivation to like make things happen.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. And I think it's like there is a big thing that has to do with like this burst out of social media, right? And I
Yeah.
love spending my time on social media and I love to see what other people are doing. And I scroll and I see all these I love
Mm-hmm.
quotes. So I love, like I'm like, oh,
Totally.
this speaks to my heart. Like other people are more into like TikTok and all these funny videos, and it's fine. But I think when there was this burst out of like social media, right? Because I don't know about you, but I started, I think, my social media channels with like with high five or something like that, like, like I don't know. A lot of people who might be listening to the are like, what is this girl talking about, right? And it took like forever to load and whatnot, but it was not as open as it is now. And because now social media is
Yeah.
everywhere, there is this huge expectation for all of us to be living in this beautiful huge house in Bali and be running these retreats and taking people on a jet. And then the thing is not that you can't do it, because you can if you want to, right?
Totally.
It's your possibility. It's up to you if you want it. The problem is that now you're living towards leaving someone else's expectations or someone's life, and you're comparing yourself to them. So then you always feel short, right? You feel like, oh my God, I'm so far away from there. And actually, you might just be 2 degrees out of the scope, right? They say if you're in a boat and you turn the steer 2%, 2%, okay?
Oh yeah.
You will arrive to a different continent.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
We
2%.
forget. Yeah, we forget such like again that shift in something that needs to happen can be that little, but make it happen. You can make it happen. And social media is a hard thing, right? We see it now, and especially in the yoga world, you have all of correct the expectations. You have some of these big yoga brands that they use your stereotypical yoga shape and yoga size and all of the girls and guys being hyper mobile and hyper flexible and doing all these gymnastic things, and they're not saying, oh, guess what, he or she used to actually be gymnastics, perform gymnastics in college, and then you again have everyone getting so undermotivated with all of that. How can I live up to that? How can I do that? Or how can I drop the idea and just do my own thing?
Yeah, I think that's why we have to keep trying, and we just have to show up and keep showing up. And,
Totally.
like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you don't change the way you do things, how do you expect to have something different in your life?
Totally. It's just like you said, it's like, I'm going to throw this out here, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and I'll figure it out on something else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop you from trying with something else.
Yes.
It's like, okay, this part of it didn't work. What part did I notice work? What part can I shift that is still, authentically me and coming from what I want to put out to the world, that I can find the relationship with someone else. I can reach that other person.
Yeah, I think this is so important, right? Like, it is all about just creating new things, right? Letting your creative juices be part of your life all the time and be like, what do I want to create, right? How do I want to teach this yoga class? Do I want to teach it but this music or that music? Or, do I invite people to do it with their eyes closed? Do I switch off the lights for a little bit? Like,
totally.
This is talking about yoga classes, but when it comes to retreats, it's the same way. How do you enjoy the process, right, of creating something, and then having no expectations and being like, well, if it doesn't work, it's okay. I know sometimes with retreats, totally. It has this like financial piece because everyone wants to book the retreat venue before they sell the spots, and so do you have to invest some money, but there's also ways where you can pre-sell your retreat without actually having booked the venue, so then you don't have this financial strain behind you, right? Because that makes it harder when you're in a digital world. Well, if something doesn't work, you just delete it and that's it, right? Like the digital footprint disappears.
Right. Gone. Beep.
But I don't know, how is your experience when it comes to retreats? What is like your thoughts on that?
Retreats were like, retreats are like my jam. Like, they're becoming my new jam. Like, when I'm home in my studios, like I said, I love working like with just that athletic mindset, first responders, that different shift in personality and mindset and perspective. Love working with them. But as far as adventures, like I said, my first retreat was planned, and it was June in 2020. And I had already started selling in spots and taking deposits, and I was taken to this magical place I loved. And then, the world shuts down. You're like, whoa, we weren't planning for a pandemic. And so everything shuts down, and that was like a hard, like, no. And no's to me are like, is it a hard no, or is it a maybe no? Or even since I was a little kid, like, that always just challenged me to like, let's see if there's a different way I can do it and not get to know. And as the world again slowly started to open, I reached back out to the company, and they were American-based company, and so they were very much, here's the rules and here's that, and we're still going to do the temperature scans and this. I'm like, that's a 45-minute boat ride in 100 degrees sometimes, weather. What if somebody gets there and they scan and they're like, well, we'll scan them twice. I'm like, I'm not sending someone back home 45 degrees off the boat. And so I scrapped it really quick. And within 48 hours, I had an entire different venue. I found an entire different chef. Everything was working. I was getting ready to put down the deposit. And again, that shift just happened. Open to the flow, open to the trying new something. Like, who really wants to cancel the entire spot and start over again with a new spot? No one. but it worked so much better. And just slowly and little things like that. And once I was like, okay, it's not no anymore. This is a yes. And we're going to make it happen. Sold that first one out. And those yeses just kept happening the more retreats I did. We came right back and we went to Dominican, and that was a big, huge yes. And that is absolutely still one of my favorite spots to take people. But there's been so many learning experiences into adaptability and teaching students and teaching just humans that. I have tons of actually people that come on my retreats that don't even do the yoga part, or will try yoga for their very first time, or try yoga or meditation for their first time. Some of it is they're just there to be there. And there's a lot of lessons learned in that.
That's
you learn
beautiful.
you learn how to shift around other people and be around other people and change your conversations when you shift again. Who's around you? Do things different than you normally done them before.
I really like this because it's such a powerful example, right? Because so many times we can feel that the world is against us, right? That, everything shut down and now you have to figure out, but then you get to choose how you spend your time, right? There was basically an option, people were stuck in their house. They could either binge watch every single show on Netflix or do something productive with their lives. And there's so many people who created thriving businesses or expanded their business or adapted it from a shop into something online and then just transform everything of who they were, who they thought. And I'm not saying it was easy, but I mean, if there's no bigger example of adaptability in this current time, of course, right?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
Well, and we kind of have to even face that it's not going to be easy. Like that's some of us like that keeps us down is we all get this feeling like we all at some point want to crawl in a hole and cry with the work that's in front of us. And I don't think that's anything to be stranger to. It's, can you crawl out of your hole and choose to be adaptable to what's happening? Can you choose to do the work what needs to be done now, whether you really want to go in that direction? I mean, because some of the things like changing a lot of our businesses during those times weren't fun and weren't necessarily our choices, but how we led our communities or led our businesses around that definitely was our choice. And can we make those choices?
Yeah, I think this is so interesting because at the end of the day, we have free will, right?
Totally.
We get to choose which experience in this life we live. We can live a life joyful, that even if things are hard, we choose to show up in a positive way, or the other side of the road, right? Or you get to choose exactly how you want to live and develop your life. And I think for everyone who's listening and is thinking about running retreats or workshops or the shape of the name of the container, honestly, it's quite
absolutely
irrelevant, right?
Fill in the blank.
We are in the space of creating transformation, right? Creating the space for people to come and transform the way it looks like. That's really very irrelevant, at least for me, right? In my point of view, it's just of course, in person, I think the energy is so much powerful, but the whole thing is we get to choose how we show up in the world and what we do and how we help others transform. And we don't have to take them into this transformation where you're not even there yet, right? And so many people want to show you that, oh, you can be in a relationship, and then you're and they're teaching you that, and then they've always had bad relationships and they haven't gone through that, but they are learning while they teach, and it's perfectly fine. You just need to be honest about it, right? You just need to be, this is where I'm at, authentic, vulnerable, and
absolutely.
let's go in this journey together. let's do this, right? Sometimes you just need a peer to grab your hand and be like, let's walk this path together and release all these blockages. I'm not telling you I am there in this like perfect scenario that really honestly doesn't really exist, but let's walk this together, let's do this.
Totally.
And that's so powerful. And when you're like a yoga teacher or any kind of transformational teacher, you keep learning all the time, right? So who you were yesterday, it's not the same person that you're today.
I run, because obviously Boise is still like small time community, even though we're growing. But I will run past students that I don't get to see because they're from other studios I taught in my private, previous to owning Authentic. And, they're like, oh, I need to come get one of your classes. I loved your class. I'm like, ooh, that was 5 years ago. I am not even kind of the same teacher even then. And it's like, even just stepping back and thinking about that, like, you're not the same person that you were yesterday. You were not the same person you were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Just so many different experiences we go through. The drive you take across town, the experiences that can happen in that drive can change your life. Conversation you have with another human. I mean, listening to a podcast, hearing that message out there, like, oh, that was the sign I needed. Those experiences are the things that change your life along the way. You change along the way.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not the same person that I was before we started this call.
Techno.
I am not. And I love it, right? Because for me, like there's been so much change in life that I actually love change now. When something shifts, I'm just like, bring it on, And
what door is opening now?
Exactly. I'm just like, what is gonna happen? I get excited when something doesn't pan out. I'm like, okay, well, it didn't work. Let me try something different, right? And then what happens there? And then I'm like, oh, this feels more fun. Like it's just like,
yeah, it's staying open to that curiosity. And it's like, ooh, okay, well, this isn't happening. So why isn't this happening? What else, what am I supposed to receiving from that not happening? Or I let go of this. So what do I get out of this? Like keeping that door open rather than like, man, I didn't sell a single seat in that workshop. Or, ooh, nobody showed up to my class at noon today. And it's rather than like looking at it at that, it's like, ooh, what left me open to that? Because
oh
some of
yeah,
those classes, I've had like one person walk in the door. And last week, there were 20 people in the door. And it's like, I always find out during that one, working with that one person, like, ooh, this person needed this today and they need my attention today. And it's like staying open to all of the opportunities and the possibilities that come with the shifts, with the changes in life. But, as it's fun and exciting, but it took a lot of work to be okay with just letting it happen, though.
Yeah, it does take time and effort, but I think most of anything, it takes a lot of consistency.
Yeah,
Just
totally.
staying there, getting back
Yep.
on the mat every day, going back in the
Yep.
mat game.
Totally.
Just it's all about being consistent. And I know it sometimes is very hard. Like I've seen it. I like when I teach my programs on how to run retreats, I have people that are super excited. They come, they learn, they come out, they're like, oh my gosh, Lainey, all these teachings are amazing. It's amazing. I'm gonna run my retreat. I'm ready to put it out there. Like I'm almost there. I'm missing 2 steps. I'm just missing like the sales page or whatever. And then it's 6 months later and I check on it. I always send messages to them because I love them,
totally.
they like we
right?
were
Like, I want to know.
I want to know. And then they're like, no, I'm still missing these 2 steps. And I'm like, okay, do we need some accountability here? Do I need to become your accountability coach now?
Right.
And
Yeah.
check in 1 week for 10 minutes and be like, hey, have you done it?
Or even it's like, okay, skip step 2 if you can. Let's go to 3, 4, and 5. Let's get those done, and then we'll come back to 2. Because at that point in time, you might not even need step 2 anymore. And it's just like learning how to adapt that way. Or, letting it shift. With all this idea, like, I want to sell this huge retreat. And it's like, maybe your first retreat is your 3 best friends. And what's wrong with a retreat like that? Get your feet under you. Make hiccups. Make the mistakes with them. Make it still a fun, enjoyable time to them. That's still a win.
Yes. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's about the experience, right? And you won't let me
Totally.
lie. Retreats are all about the experience and the transformation,
Absolutely.
of course. But what brings a retreat into really becoming a retreat and not just a wellness holiday, right? Because there is a huge difference, and so many people
Absolutely.
want to put it into the same box, but it's very, very different. Is that
Yeah.
the experience transforms who you are, and that's why the experience has to be curated, and there has to be an intention behind it, right? There has to be an intentionality of why you're coming here. And maybe the people who sign up don't even need to know what's the intention behind it.
Totally.
But there is something.
Correct. You got your game plan in mind. They don't necessarily need to know because you're so set into that intentionality of what you're doing, who you are, who you're showing up as, that they'll get that from you no matter who's sitting in front of you.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing also about adaptability is that, because we all become, well, we are all kind of part of a web, right? Like, because we're all interconnected among each others. But when you're in a retreat, you create this container with these different energies, these different vibrations, and you can be teaching the exact same thing from a previous retreat. You can even be reading it out of a script. And the way how it's going to come out is going to be completely different
Oh, absolutely.
because the
I
people
sat
make
here.
the experience.
Correct. I was sitting here in class this morning and we had like 15 different people in the room. And I'm like, there's 15 of you in the room and I'm teaching 16 different classes because there's the class that I'm teaching and there's the way that every single one of them in that room is perceiving it.
Right.
So, yeah.
I love this. Oh, this is so powerful. I think for everyone who's listening, like, just really take into consideration this space of, like, getting inspired, becoming adaptable, and just trying new things and being consistent and just moving forward and just trying new things and making it fun, and understanding also that there is a lot of work behind it. So many people think that, running a retreat is a piece of cake, but it does have its technical and logistical pieces, but there
Oh,
are
absolutely.
ways where you can make it an enjoyable experience. I always tell everyone who talks to me, I'm like, you don't want to finish your first retreat and hate it so much you never want to do it again.
No. If we're making it look like a piece of cake, that's a good thing. But as you know, there is so many other little back things behind it. And that might not be everyone's jam. Just because the idea is out there, like, ooh, let's teach the retreat, let's do the things. Like I always tell teachers, like, stay open to the teacher you are, because the teacher I thought I wanted to be when I first started was not the teacher I am now. And I wouldn't be teaching half the things I am now if I would have like not opened that door to that.
I really like the way you're saying this because it is so important. Like, and yeah, I do tell people, like, not everyone is meant to be doing retreats, not just because it's trending
Yeah.
and we're focused this call a lot in yoga, right? But most of like yoga teachers and now everyone kind of in the industry of like spirituality and transformation, right? Life coaches, shamans, however,
Yeah.
the
All the
name
things.
that they want to have. It's kind of like there's always like this next step and they're like, oh, retreat is like part of a business plan. And the reality is that you need to love hosting people and being of service. Yes, there is all the technical pieces. There are tools that you can learn, right? You can learn those.
Totally.
It might take you some time, but you can learn those. Or you can hire someone to do it for you. But the reality is that you need to be a person who's really of service because you're going to be spending 72 hours, 3 days, 5 days, as many days as you want. But your group of people, it doesn't matter if it's 3 or 10 or even one person, but you're going to have to be of service because they're going to be transforming and they're going to need you and they're going to need you to hold space for them. And this is something that people don't really account for. I always tell people before you go and do a retreat, try a workshop, see if you like
Yeah.
it. do it 1 hour, then do a 2 hour workshop, then a
Yeah.
3, then a day, 1 day event. You can call it a retreat if you really want to. But
Totally.
go and try and see if this is something that you really like. Going to other people's retreats and see,
Yeah. Some
what do
people
I
just
like,
really
what I
want to
don't.
be on the retreat, not necessarily like leading the retreat. And those are, I mean, great places to go too. Like being on retreats, fantastic.
Yeah.
Sometimes the leading it isn't always everyone's forte. And just like you said, like coming up with the life coaches and all that, or what, it's kind of like, okay, this is the business plan. Well, let that business plan be adaptable. Let yourself be adaptable into like, maybe that's not your jam. What direction is your jam?
Yeah, or maybe it's not
And then,
right now, or maybe it is.
or correct. Or maybe that's your only jam. Maybe that's all it is. Like you just want to jump on and do retreats and you're good at it. And you're good at hosting and you're good at making sure things happen.
Yeah, like it's very interesting that we're talking about this, because I am just gonna, very soon I'm gonna be teaching, like I'm teaching a program that is called Launching Your Retreat Business, right? And the main core piece of this is to show people that there is two different ways you can go, right? If you want to have retreats in your life, or like hosting them, right? It's either they become an add-on on your offer. Let's say you're a yoga teacher and you teach your classes in a studio and private clients and what online, however that looks like. And then from there, you add on retreats every 3 months, once a year, twice a year, as many as you want. And there's a path of the retreat business where your door, where people come through, is through retreats. And then they can hire you for private classes. They can take more sessions with you, and then, or they can become your loyal customers and come to all of your retreats. But it's basically through which door do you walk. And when you're running a retreat business, right, that your main focus is running retreats, the game completely changes.
Oh, totally.
It's a completely different game than running an event every 3 months,
Totally. Big
than
shift.
making your main income coming from retreats and really having retreats as your main focus, like your core offering. Basically, that's how you would call it in marketing, right? And in business.
Yeah.
And it's
You're
so
shifting your
different,
entire everything. Yeah.
right?
Marketing
So
plan's different. Student clientele's different. Yeah.
the
Again,
customer relationship flow, right? Everything changes because your focus is now completely different. And it doesn't mean you don't have other offerings afterwards, right? You can even sell your personalized yoga mats if you want to. Like
totally.
honestly, like there's there's no limit to these things. But it's huge how it shifts, and it's something that I'm really keen now on creating these educational pieces, because everyone is thinking on like, oh, I do retreats and this is like very like normal, and then later on I only want to do retreats, and I'm like, well, if you really only want to do retreats, or that's your end goal, why don't you just start building your business with that mindset and goal? Because it's so different. You don't want to go and have to scrap everything and then change it because then you decided to do it, right?
Yep. It's different beast in its own, that's for sure.
It's another game, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's how you're coming at your entire brand in general.
Yeah. So I love it. As you can see, I'm very, very passionate about this, because for me, it's like, it's so important. And there are a lot of people who really want to, like, they love hosting, they love executing, they love the event part, they love making sure that things are happening. They're like hustling and moving and, planning and all this creative space. And that's what they want to do. And I'm like, well, let's make this happen.
Correct. Maybe, yeah, maybe that is your jam more so even than like this teacher. Like we think, even during the teacher trainings, we discuss like very much so, like just because we're in studio and you're, training in a power vinyasa heated, yoga practice, like that might not be your forte. That might not be your passion when it comes down to everything.
Yeah.
Where can you take this? You can take it anywhere you want to. You can let it adapt to how you, again, want to show up to your bigger picture.
Yeah, as simple as just shifting like tiny bit in the way that instead of like teaching yoga and mainly asanas, your focus or your passion is more in bhakti yoga.
Absolutely.
As simple as just like changing the path within the same yoga world, right?
Totally. It's that 2 degrees again, right? Remember?
Yes. Oh my God, this is amazing. I love this. I think there's so much important information that has come out here for everyone who's listening, and just, you know, for them to know that, for all of you to know that you can keep going and showing up and enjoying the process. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
I think we might have adapted our way around just about everything.
Yes, true. Very, very true. So, Amanda, if someone wants to find out about you and, go to one of your retreats or visit you in your yoga studio in Boise. I can never pronounce it properly.
You say
How
it
can
however
they
you want
find
to.
it?
The easiest way is to jump on our website at authenticyogastudio.com, and you can find your way through our retreats and even me and my social media there. So easiest way is jump on that website.
Amazing. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun. I learned so much from you. So I thank you for this
Thank
time. And
you
I
for
am
having
so
me.
excited for everyone who listened to this. And I'll see you next time.